Hello, my name is Patrick Moore,
I'm Marlisa McLaughlin.
and welcome to Health Buzz.
Perspectives on natural healing.
Well, Marlisa, we have a very exciting show that I'm thrilled that we're going to discuss today, and that's all on vitamin D and the sunshine, and how it can have such a remarkable effect on our health and help us to stay healthy and stay well and to prevent illness. And so before we start that show, you have a couple comments I know you wanted to make?
Yeah, we've had some really great feedback. Thanks everyone so much for checking in with us, letting us know how you're feeling about it, giving us some ideas. One of the most interesting I had this week was actually an email from Sweden.
Oh, wow.
And the last show that we had covered relationships, looking for romance or
Yes.
intimacy. Wait, there's a difference? And many people didn't realize that they knew there was a difference, but they hadn't had the perspective come into their active thinking. So the email kind of went over what they did afterwards because they changed the format of their dialogue together. This is a couple that I'm talking about in Sweden. And she said, oh, it was a great subject, and it was probably an eye-opener for a lot of people about the physical and emotional connection and how it affects health. So we really hit the jackpot there to know that that's what we're really hoping to do, is to bring you those connections that you can make on a personal level.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, this is our sixth show, and we've covered the dietary myth of cholesterol and essential oils, and we've talked about the garlic and garlic benefits and the farming of garlic. And of course, we have the Harvest Festival with all that wonderful music. And so today it's getting into the culture we live in today, because in the last 40 or 50 years, good old sunshine's been demonized.
Yes,
You know,
it has.
we've been made to fear the sun, hide your children, sunblock, and this is almost like the first time in the history of thousands of years that we're saying avoid the sun. Yet historically, the relationship of the human beings and plants and animals to the sun has been critical to our survival and to our health. So we're going to explore a little bit of that, and you have your relationship, because Marlisa, as some of you know, lived in Iceland for how many years?
17. I'm naturalized citizen, so I
Yeah.
really have been able to experience the seasons as they pass. And it actually took me 2 full years to really understand how the light was affecting me in those terms of darkness being so great.
Because here we are, we're in Connecticut, northern latitude, 42nd degree latitude. We're coming into November, which is the fall season. The leaves are beautiful, right? New England foliage.
Best fall season we've had in a long time.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. But how do we prepare as we're moving into sort of the hibernation cycle of the New England winters? You know, the days are getting shorter. We've got less sun.
And that's the tilt of the Earth's axis.
Yes, the Earth in the northern latitude, it starts to convert onto an angle, at least the ultraviolet B rays that the sun produces, and that's what produces vitamin D, which is crucial. So we go all year in the summertime. Natural vitamin D is produced by exposure to the sun, but as the fall comes, by October, November, that ultraviolet B, we're not getting it. It's the sun's at an angle, and so we're not able to have that reaction where the ultraviolet B hits our skin and produces vitamin D, which keeps us so strong and well.
And I never knew that until we started talking
Yeah.
that, because I remember saying to you, well, I go skiing and I know I don't get much vitamin D because I have all my garb on, but you said, well, even if you went out without any protection.
There are 2 rays, well actually 3, but the ultraviolet A and the ultraviolet B. So the B is what produces the vitamin D. And that disappears in the winter up here in these latitudes completely. We still get the ultraviolet A, but that's not producing the vitamin D hormone, which we're going to talk about, what a powerful hormone it is. And I've often, it's such a powerful hormone, I've often told many of my patients and clients, you know, if we look at men and women, what hormone makes a man? Starts with the testosterone. And of course, the couple hormones that we can, you know, make a woman, progesterone and estrogen. But to me, vitamin D, and it's not a vitamin, it's a steroidal hormone, is what makes a human being. It makes what's human.
And I don't even know how many people actually know that it's a hormone.
Yes. It's interesting because when they started first discovering vitamins in the 1920s and things like that, they found this substance that cured blindness, vitamin A. Okay, let's call it the first vitamin. Let's go by the alphabet. And then they found vitamin B. There was, It can affect what's called beriberi and rice, disease if you don't have vitamin B, and then vitamin C for scurvy.
Oh.
And the next thing was what was left. Well, we discovered something that could affect bone development and things like that, so let's call it D. So that's how it developed. So a little history on that.
So, and then I'm still fascinated about the latitudes. Now in Iceland we were at 66 degrees north, so we're even further up there, and so the darkness had a remarkable switchover for your body chemistry and how we lived, and how I found it interesting culturally how people combated the darkness and how they had incorporated it in so many years it had been settled. So they had many generations to be able to work in systems that counteracted what the lack of vitamin D did. They knew how to get it naturally.
Yeah.
We actually have a video we'd like to share with you from one of our Icelandic viewers. So here is Ásrún Ásmundsdóttir.
Hello, Ásrún.
Hi, Ásrún, from the northern coast of Iceland.
Hi Healthbus, and hello to you, Marlisa and Patrick. My name is Ásrún Ásmundsdóttir, and I'm currently in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. I was invited to share my thoughts and experience for today's show, which is about seasonal affect disorder and vitamin D. Here in Iceland, we have a very dramatic shift in daylight hours. We have our own word for this season, and we call it skammdegi, or in English, short days. Here in Iceland, daylight drops a lot over the winter time, and we don't have complete darkness, but we do have very few hours of sunlight from November to February. Personally, I like the summertime in Iceland very much, and it's very different from how it is over the winter time. And because of the short time of sunlight here in Iceland, some people say that they get seasonal depression when it's the darkest in Iceland, and that is related to that we don't get that much sunlight over the winter time. So over the winter time, we in Iceland don't get that much vitamin D from the sunlight, so we eat fish and drink lychee to get vitamin D. But it isn't all that bad. Though it's cold and dark outside, the people aren't that bothered by it. Maybe because we are used to it, but the Icelandic people are very social and they like to be around other people, and they have many hobbies like going to the swimming pool. Like we have enough hot water, so we can have a lot of hot swimming pools in Iceland, and it's really nice to go to the swimming pool in the evening, and then you can look at the nice northern lights that we have here in Iceland that you've probably heard of. And yeah, thank you for listening, and hopefully you get to visit Iceland one day and experience this. Thank you.
So thanks, Ásrún. That was just so lovely. And that was the first time I actually got to hear Ásrún speaking beautiful English, by the way. I thought it might be interesting to tell you that she mentioned that they take lychee. And I noticed that she didn't tell you what that was. And it's actually cod liver oil. That's what they do. When I went to Iceland, one of the very first things I was offered and also encouraged to take on a daily basis was lychee, which is the cod liver oil. And
yes, and here we have a sample of the oil, and there's a fascinating, when we go back to what's going on in Iceland in these darker climates, the Nordic, this goes back to the Vikings. How did they survive all these winters? I mean, they would have all kinds of fermented, oily fish that they would eat all through the winter, which would keep them strong.
And still do.
And this is something that if you go to America, the 1890s all the way up into the 1950s, this was the standard of care. Every parent, every mother and father would give their children cod liver oil every morning. And I even saw pictures in the schools of Iceland. You would have the school teachers giving the students every single day, administering it as part of their educational protocol. But I had an opportunity to interview many seniors over the years, World War II generation and previous. They're now in their 80s, 90s, if they're still alive. And I would always ask them the question, what were you given when you were a child? And this is pre-antibiotic. What was the therapy? And they always said, And they grimaced. Yuck. My mother gave me cod liver oil, you know. And I said, well, why did they give it? I don't know, but we never got sick. We
And
never got sick.
It's true. I have to say, living within a culture of people that are so health conscious and really, really emphasize cod liver oil, it's a very healthy nation.
Yeah.
So many things
The
that
whole nation is just guzzling cod liver oil.
cod liver oil and the black of death at the nighttime. No, just
Now,
kidding.
what's in this magical juice, you know, vitamin D and everything like that? It's almost sunshine in a bottle. And, you know, they wouldn't know why they were taking it, but science has shown as to what are the therapeutic benefits of the fish oil, what we call omega-3 oil, and the vitamin D and the cod liver oil. And the vitamin D is one of the most remarkable immune boosters. I mean, it basically controls our immune system, and it can produce massive doses of these natural antibiotics and antivirals to keep us well. So that's one of the reasons, but also the vitamin D would keep our bones strong. It helps take that calcium and phosphorus and it deposits it in the bone. So we're going to show a picture soon about that in terms of, okay, there it is, the rickets. Rickets was epidemic in the 19th centuries and up into the early 20th century, and everybody was trying to find out what's causing this deformation of the body, bow-leggedness, knock knees, you know, the head, shoulders, and everything
And
like
the
that.
hands too. I saw lots of photos with the hands.
Absolutely,
Into
and they didn't know what
joints.
was causing it. And when they started giving the cod liver oil, magically, the bone started staying strong, and you can actually take a deformity and reverse it.
That's amazing and so simple. Just such a simple thing to do.
Exactly, and you know, this affects not, we think of just our bone structure, but all our teeth. You know, teeth can get rickets too, and because of the antibiotic nature of it too, you find the American Dental Association back in the 1930s was strongly advocating the cod liver oil for children because it reduced cavities by 50%.
That's amazing.
50%.
That's huge.
Now, we had a personal testimonial. My stepson Liam went to an orthodontist. He was getting crooked teeth, age 10, 11, 12, 13. And so, of course, you got to wear those braces. They're very expensive for a year. And he'd break them and then break another and break another. And finally, I said, let's give him lots of vitamin D. Everything remolded.
That's
It was like
incredible.
magic, going right back into shape. And if you look at pictures going back into the 1930s, 40s, 50s, where they would be treating rickets, you would see a young girl all bent over like this, like 13 years old, and a year later perfectly straightened out. Just stunning and remarkable what it can do. So that vitamin D is, I mean, you might call it your growth hormone for kids. Growing, keeping your bones strong, keeping your immune system strong. One more thing which, outside of the rickets is, if you take the fish oil, it has one of the most important brain substances in it called DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. And that in itself has a remarkable effect on helping children to form their brains, communications in their brain cells, and academic achievement. I mean, the studies are out there where kids can actually improve their academic achievement more than anything they do by getting that docosahexaenoic acid. And that's why a lot of formulas you find today have added the DHA because it's not in breast milk, and neither is vitamin D.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, so...
You would think that breast milk would have everything, but...
Nature intended, and that's a great point you make, nature intended us to have a relationship with the sun. We're supposed to be outdoors. So the sun produces the vitamin D, and then it gets into the breast milk.
I got
You see what I mean?
Yes, and the ancients knew all about the
Oh,
sun. We have
wow,
the
the
sun
ancients.
gods. Talk about the sun gods. We
My
have
goodness. Heliopolis, Apollo. Heliopolis is a city
There's
right near
Helio.
the pyramids outside of Cairo suburb.
Greek god sun. And then we
Absolutely.
have the Egyptian sun god Ra,
Ra.
which will be coming on in just a second.
I mean, you even have, if you go back, of course, all the ancient Egyptians, all the ancients knew. Hippocrates always talked about the importance of the sun as an antiseptic. And we go back to the Roman homes, all the Roman houses. I mean, they had ordinances. You think about ordinances for how you can build your house in
Right?
Rome.
Oh, right.
There was a penalty if you blocked anyone else's sun from southern exposure. in Rome.
That's
'cause
got to
they
happen down at the Hamptons too, I'm sure.
I wish it would happen in Manhattan. You walk the streets and you're in shade because of the skyscrapers and things like that.
Now,
So,
and also the Aztecs, they actually had a sunstone. Now, we know they're pretty noted from their calendars, but they had this, there it is, that beautiful sunstone.
sure. The Hindus, even the swastika, which was used by the Nazis, I mean, that is a sun wheel.
I didn't realize
Even
all of this.
even in pre-Christianity, the cross in itself was a pagan symbol for sun to the sun. So we have all of the Stonehenge and all these places, where the sun was such a part of our natural course of life. And can you imagine, we live in a time now where in the last 50 years, the sun has been completely demonized. Now, as a health practitioner, I don't tell anyone to go out there and burn in the sun. I mean, that's nonsense or anything like that. But we need therapeutic levels for our children where we learn how, as the ancients do in our previous generations in America, how to get a nice therapeutic tan without burning.
And speaking of pigmentation, there's been a big, huge, as we migrated, our pigment changed. So we started up, why don't you tell them how it started off when we're at the equator and we have all of the Egyptians, how did they get the strength to build the pyramids, etc.?
So if we look at medical anthropology and all the scientists around the world, we originated in Africa. So you and I originally had black, dark skin. But then our ancestors started migrating all over the world, northern climates to Asia, things like that. And a rapid evolution developed because if you have dark skin, it's perfect for Africa where you have lots of sun and you need that protection. But you still need to get some sun.
For the vitamin D to make the hormone.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you're moving up to Scandinavia from
like
Africa...
Iceland, right? The Icelanders have such beautiful white opal skin.
Yeah, the skin started changing and changing. The lighter skin, you're able to, absorb more vitamin D, and it's for your survival and bones, and even the pelvic bones of a mother, so that she could give birth without dying.
Right, and
So
they are very strong-boned in the northern countries, with less sun.
With less sun.
So the lighter skin helps them absorb it faster.
Yes. And culturally, this, when you have people moving from different parts of our evolutionary cycle, you'll feel Caribbeans, Jamaicans moving up to Connecticut, the north, they suffer more because they can't absorb the sun as much, and we don't have it as much in Connecticut, and we have these long winters. So you'll have higher levels of breast cancer, blood pressure, prostate disease for people of color. So it's very important, with Hispanic community or dark-skinned or African-American community to really make them aware of this.
And increase the D?
Well, therapeutically, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and thinking about the northern countries, we actually have Niels Finsen, who invented the light. They did use some lights. There's Niels Finsen now. You have some history on Niels.
Niels Finsen won the Nobel Prize in 1903, and he always knew that the sun was important in growing up, and he developed certain weaknesses as a child because he didn't have the sun. He didn't know why, but he learned later. And he developed what were called Finsen lamps, which were world famous in the late 1890s, where people would come for their sun treatments. And a lot of it was to cure tuberculosis, which was running rampant in those days.
That's right.
I mean, tuberculosis was killing people left and right in London, England, because of, kids were, closed industrial centers in these cities, the infectious aspect of it, so they didn't get any sunshine. So he cured plenty of people and inspired everyone. And, he went on in 1905. Robert Koch was a bacteriologist from Europe, and he won the Nobel Prize too. And he spent his whole life being inspired by Niels Finsen to develop these sanatoriums, life therapy institutes in the Alps to treat every disease.
And look at that. There they are, taken outside heliotherapy from the sun god of Rome, Helio. And there's heliotherapy, getting the rays of the sun to increase the health naturally. Yeah,
so this went all over. This really influenced, the early 20th century in America, where people understood that the sun was an antiseptic, antimicrobial, and people could get stronger and heal. And it affected even the architecture. Architects were trained in medicine and the sun, and hospitals were built with windows that could attract where the ultraviolet B rays would pass through. So you could maximize sunshine. Think about the hospitals today. Our windows now are different. They don't allow ultraviolet B sun in, and there's a hospital in St. Raphael's that they closed off the atrium. They used to have a beautiful atrium in New Haven. The hospital I used to bring my mom out in the sun during the day on the top of the hospital. My dad, they get sun. The employees could get sun, and it was wonderful for patients, but they closed it because they didn't understand the importance of that therapeutically. So it was really remarkable, in terms of the knowledge of the past. And so do we have another picture on
There's some more.
babies? Okay.
Now the interchangeable word heliotherapy with phototherapy or light therapy, and here we have 2 children with light therapy.
Yeah, and they're probably being treated for jaundice, and this is not uncommon in a vitamin D deficiency age that we live in, or insufficiency. In the 1950s, it was a nun at an English hospital, and she took all these little babies that were developing jaundice and just pushed them outside and said, bathe in the sun, and everything started clearing up.
It's amazing. So, and didn't you also note that the vitamin D deficiency in pregnancy
Yes.
can transfer to your children? So if you're vitamin D deficient when you're pregnant, your child might end up having light therapy right after birth.
Absolutely. It has a huge effect, in the course of pregnancy, and making sure you have therapeutic levels of vitamin D. And, what does that mean, therapeutic levels? I mean, much higher, that I believe, than what is being offered today or suggested today. Yeah.
So, but in the natural light and the sunshine, you noted about UVA and UVB.
Yes.
So they affect the skin at different levels.
Yes.
And sunscreen is blocking. And you talked to sunscreen. Here we go. Is another really interesting slide. When you're out in the sun and you have exposure to the UVB and you start to get red, it's actually a natural alarm that you got your dose.
Excellent. Yeah, you said that beautifully. I mean, traditionally, okay, fine, avoid the sun and put the sunblock on. And the sunblock just blocked ultraviolet B rays traditionally in America. So we think, okay, that's what helps. The B actually produces the D, but it also, without it, it causes the burn. So you think if you protect yourself against the burn, the ultraviolet B, you're fine.
But you're blocking your D
You're
production.
blocking the D production, but you're also allowing the ultraviolet A, which doesn't burn on the outside, but it penetrates and destroys and damages our DNA. So all along, smart America, the Europeans had it with full spectrum block, A and B. We're sitting out here with their we're not getting burned. I can sit out here for hours.
And you're so
Meanwhile,
lathered up you can't even see.
The ultraviolet A is coming right into our face and destroying our DNA and causing, really complications.
Yes,
And then we're blocking
premature
vitamin
aging,
D.
cancer,
Exactly.
skin cancer. So but then we have the opposite end of this when you're getting that. We have the D deficiency. We have a
Yes.
vitamin D deficiency issue that we'll talk about to you about
Yeah.
the medical aspects of that. So,
Absolutely.
So the vitamin D deficiency, what does it look like? We have some symptoms. There they are. You can with a
Well,
vitamin.
this is a presentation, a seminar I gave, vitamin D deficiency syndrome, and how it affects practically everything. I mean, you can't really say it's just this or that. It's almost every health condition on earth. And because it plays such a role in controlling maybe 10 to 15% of our genes, and it's such a powerful hormone that affects all of our cells and all of our organs in our body. And so, we'll go into a couple of those, where we have time. I'm going to just talk to you about a couple studies. There are thousands of studies, that I've reviewed over the years and on vitamin D. But here we are going into what season. Besides winter, you see all these advertisements for what kind of shot?
Shot?
Right, shots, like Rite Aid,
Oh, the flu shots.
flu shots, flu season. Well, in my opinion, we're going into vitamin D deficiency season because you don't have a flu season down in the equator where the sun shines year-round and you have ultraviolet, B rays and D production.
And could you say that one more time? Because that's like a fact that if we really listen to with both ears and our heart, then we would really not be afraid of the sun as we've been now pushed to believe that it's wrong, that the equator, people at the equator don't get the flu.
Well, I wouldn't say they get it, but there isn't a
Often.
flu season, and you have a correlation. We have fewer cancer rates, fewer autoimmune diseases as you get down to the equator because of the D production. You even have a study in Norway where on the coast where the people are eating the oily fish and getting the D, far less amounts of disease and multiple sclerosis and autoimmune and everything like that and cancer than the people living inland in the mountains.
Right, we
So
don't
there
have
are all these
the allergies too.
all these correlations all over the world. I mean, you have reduced cancer rates, reduced heart disease rates, and autoimmune and all kinds of things when you get down to the equator because of the natural D production. I mean, that's one of the main causes for sure. So anyway, the couple more points on this, because it's not just cancer, heart disease, and bone health, and it's mood, your mentality you talked about, seasonal affective disorder.
Which, by the way, many people might be experiencing some of these symptoms and are not really quite sure that what it boils down to. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, we changed the clocks back and I don't understand why I'm so tired and I'm moody or I'm irritable. And it's actually, I mean, I know that it's been in the media and a lot of people have heard it, but it's very common, and more so because there's a vitamin D deficiency rather than it doesn't really have anything to do with the clocks.
No, and people don't know why they're feeling this way, the lethargic, the tiredness, this or that. I mean, our blood pressure goes up in the winter, we have more strokes, more suicides, more diagnoses of disease in the winter, more, so but they don't know why. So getting vitamin D at a therapeutic level or sunshine therapy brings back that animal spirit, that strength, that immune function, and gives us so much protection in that respect. It's also crucial for fertility. I mean, we have a lot of people out there, mothers or to-be mothers who would like to, have a child, so it affects fertility and weight. University of Minnesota showed that you need to get your D levels up to effectively lose weight.
That's so fascinating, because I would not have thought of that.
Yes.
Just to increase your D if you want to at least approach that.
So we have some D samples here.
I'm going to go for it. I'm going to.
One thing I've always found is people say I'm taking D, but in most cases they're not taking enough. They're just not taking enough. And for those, I don't want to get, this is not a medical show, which is giving medical advice, but talk to your healthcare practitioner and someone who really knows vitamin D. Because I find, with all due respect, medical doctors are not trained on nutrition, naturopathic medicine. They just give a standard answer, and I always think it's a lot more. And I found it
that we need or that we lack?
A lot more. We lack it and a lot more.
But you're saying the doctors, what they
many
prescribe,
MDs,
we need more.
Not enough. Not
okay,
enough.
So.
I mean, just one study. Let me just tell you about this, because this is crucial for every pregnant woman who is watching this, or every grandmother who's is looking after their daughter and going through a pregnancy. National Institute of Health study published in 2009, financed by the NIH, South Carolina Medical Center, Dr. Bruce Hollis and Dr. Carol Wagner. They took 600 pregnant women, gave them 4,000 units of vitamin D. So they tried to get their therapeutic level up to what's called 40 nanograms over milliliters. When they got the vitamin D up to that level at 4,000 units, here's what the results were. Premature births and labor dropped by 50% alone. Infections, respiratory, vaginosis, things like that dropped by 50%. Gestational diabetes dropped by 30%. Preeclampsia, high blood pressure, 30%. Fewer babies were born small to date. C-sections dropped, and at the same time, children were born, and as they follow them, less risk of eczema, wheezing, and respiratory infections. So remarkable results when we get the D levels up. So at that note, let's go and prove to you. Today, fish oil, things like that, I mean, they were bad in the past. They didn't taste good, but now they're orange flavored, they're lemon flavored. I give it to children, things like that. So I want to prove my point.
I'm going to try some. Oh, you're going to give it to me, doctor?
Yes. Nice. Isn't
I can't even, that's
great.
really, it's smooth.
Yes.
It's well aged.
So here
I
you got
have a little bit of a cork taste and a woody oak flavor.
Yeah, so woody oak. Well, you can mix some honey. You can mix it with your wine, or mix it with your tequila, things like that.
And there's no aftertaste. That's a different thing.
And this is a straight vitamin D. If you want to do it, they're capsules, vitamin D3. I give this to my daughter, vitamin D3 in little drops. They're raspberry flavored. I just put it into her drink or right down her mouth.
And so all of that aside, we'd like to just close up by suggesting to you that you get out in the sun best you can, just to lift the mood, if not to get the rays once they're not even available. You're still going to have a mood change, I think, just getting fresh air, your diet.
Exactly.
And we wish you well. Thanks for joining us.
And if you have any questions, the website, you can call us or things like that if you want more detailed information on vitamin D. But to me, just in conclusion, I think this is the most underestimated potential to change the human condition in America and enhance health by people realizing that the fish oils can have therapeutic effects on their brain chemistry, their children, calming their minds, making their bones strong, growth, immune system, and for adults. So, thank you.
Thank you.